Welcome to Monologues by Hassie, where I'm going to be dropping unsolicited brain dumps from the depths of my grey matter. I'll talk about life, money, society, and self-development, plus whatever else lies up there, whilst hopefully not getting cancelled in the process. In today's episode, I want to discuss the concept of fairness and why we really shouldn't give too much weight to the whole idea that things for us aren't fair, and we shouldn't fall into that mentality of, damn, it's not fair. So how did I come to this week's episode? Well, it was a few days ago. I'm in Canada right now, and I was speaking to one of my younger cousins who just happens to be graduating high school. And he's done incredibly well, incredibly bright kid, well-adjusted. And he was having the complaint that, I've worked so hard. He was telling me, I've worked so hard, and despite getting all these great marks in high school and getting into this university, my parents still won't let me go on that trip with my friends. It is so unfair. And that got me thinking, and I told him at the time as well. I said, for people like me and for people like you, so those of us who live in the Western world, who the concept of it is unfair is a horrible, horrible concept, because if we did make the world fair, and that's a very subjective thing, what on earth is fair, like who is the arbiter of what fair is, then we are fundamentally screwed, because we have so much bloody privilege. The fact that he gets to live in a Western country, he has a family that has an abundance of food, so he doesn't have to go hungry every day. He's got internet connection. So if we look at the percentage of people in the world who have access to the internet, it's 66%. He also speaks English, and well, we all speak English, right? So if you're listening to this right now, you either speak English or maybe you're trying to learn English. I wouldn't recommend listening to this podcast if you're trying to learn English, but if you're part of the 18% of the world that speaks English, there are huge benefits from that, considering that a lot of technological development that has happened in the last century and that's happening in this century happens in English. So if you happen to be an English speaker, that means you can get access to knowledge that is being discovered or rediscovered at a significantly faster pace than people who speak other languages. Not to say that things won't be translated to other languages in time. But if we look at things simply like large language learning models, right, LLMs, then they are predominantly English-based. And that is a tremendous advantage for those of us who do speak English. So the whole concept of it's not fair, like why isn't it fair, is a really, really bad concept. And this is not to minimize the suffering that we go to. Because just because a billionaire is a billionaire, it does not mean they will not suffer when something bad happens to me. And I'm not saying that all of us should have our suffering minimized. But having this conversation with my younger cousin, who I think is doing incredibly well, and I mean that in the sense that he's incredibly well adjusted at his age, it's one of these things where the idea, if we fall into this trap of it is not fair, we are simply wasting energy. And I realize that myself, I have had these it's not fair moments creep into my own psyche and mindset in the past couple of months, despite obviously trying to preemptively understand that I will encounter these things. So if you've listened to this podcast for a while, you will know that I've been trying out these new projects and traveling, and back when I started, I said, I know I'm going to go through a lot of failure. I know nothing is going to work out. But the inevitable reality has hit that I launch a project, that I start a project, I run into roadblocks and things don't pan out as I would like them to in some sort of fictitious reality in my head. And all of a sudden, even I get that whole feeling of it's not unfair. Oh, damn, I wish more people would have helped me out. I wish more people would have downloaded that app and helped me get it here and there. And this whole concept is a very bad concept for people like me to have. And chances are it's a very bad concept for people like you to have, because I realize we are wasting our mental resources. And what I was telling my cousin in that scenario is you are fundamentally engaged in a negotiation with your parents. Now, it is not that you are going to get everything you want in your life, but you are in that particular scenario where he wants to go on a trip with your friends. I said, you are far better off negotiating what you can get rather than throwing everything away. Like, there are people you will meet who throw everything away because they can't get 100%, so they will settle for 0 rather than have 40% or 50% or 60%. And that is one of those things where, you're throwing out the baby with the bathwater because you're just not happy about the entire situation. Because you're not getting 100% of what you would like to get, you're now throwing everything away. And this is a very important thing. And so the whole idea that we are going to spend our time when we encounter challenges in our life, both be it in our personal lives, in our relationships, when we're at work, when we're trying to launch a business, when you're trying to upskill, you are going to face challenges. And it is very easy to fall into the trap of life is unfair, but it is important that we take account of the blessings that are around us and realize that we are tremendously privileged. For me, I understand that even though I may face a challenge when I am dealing with one of the projects I've worked on or the projects that I'm currently working on, I get to travel the world. I actually get to do these projects. So that is itself is an immense privilege. The fact that I've been able to detach myself from the traditional workforce for a set period of time so I can do the things that people won't necessarily pay me to do, and simultaneously build my competency as a software engineer in maybe an unorthodox way is an incredible privilege. Like, I was dealing with a problem this week and I actually finished a whole textbook. Now, there are people who, because they have the obligations that they have in their life, they might not have the ability to read a whole textbook in 2 to 3 days. It's just not a feasible thing. So I realized the fact that I'm able to do these things and expose myself to knowledge and synthesize it into what I'm doing is an incredible privilege. And I realize it only makes me powerful going on. But even in this last week, and I think maybe it has to do with the fact that I've been changing countries so much in the past month and a half, and maybe I'm feeling a bit frustrated with how I'm progressing on my projects because, my work environment is always changing, that I have also been falling into that, it's unfair type of mentality. Like, why am I not better at this? Why am I not some coding genius? And I realize I don't deserve anything. It is simply up to me to realize that, hey, you're just dealing with a problem right now, and you just need to put the work in. And at the same time, even if you put the work in, you don't deserve the outcome. If it happens to come, that's great. Be grateful for it, but do not lose track of the process. And that's simply what I was trying to explain to my younger cousin as well. But really, I'm not singling him out. I'm also singling myself out, more importantly, because I realize I have that exact same thought pattern with the things that I encounter. And it is about realizing that what on earth is the concept of fair? And if we ever feel like the world is unfair, then we are probably wasting mental energy on not taking action. The whole idea that we are thinking that everything is unfair, and so that causes us to not do the things that we do have control over, is a bad mindset to have. So for those of you listening to this, have you felt that your life is unfair? And try to have a very global perspective on whether that is truly an unfair situation or not. And are there things that you can do to improve your circumstances and work towards the outcomes that you would like to have? And whilst you do it, and as I say, I thought about these things months ago before I started on this journey, and nonetheless, dealing with setbacks now with projects that aren't going where I would like them to go, I have also fallen into the trap of thinking things are unfair. And the reason I'm putting this podcast out today is I'm reminding myself that I should not fall into the trap of thinking that my life is unfair, because I am an incredibly, incredibly fortunate person no matter what I have to deal with. Because even if you don't have all the money in the world and the resources in the world, simply having a mindset where you can actually appreciate the things around you in life is such an incredibly positive thing. Because I've met people who are rich and have money and have great cars and amazing properties, and they are deeply miserable simply because they cannot take stock of the privileges that they have in their day-to-day life. And this is a luxury that all of you can actually cultivate, no matter where you are in the world, no matter where you are in life. Being grateful for what's around you and realizing that you should not feel that the world is unfair, and you should rather focus that negative energy into taking action, is an incredibly valuable thing. So I'm going to leave this episode here, and I wish all of you listening to this great success on all your endeavors. You've just made it through another episode of Monologues by Hassie. It brings me great pleasure to know that you made it to the end. To listen to more episodes, subscribe on your favorite podcast app or visit monologuesbyhassie.com. Thanks for swinging by.